Graphing linear inequalities. Our first example is to graph 3x minus y is greater than 4. So I broke it down into 4 easy steps. The first step is to solve for y, which is kind of getting it into the y equals mx plus b, except for instead of having equals, you have an inequality. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 3x from both sides because I want to move that over. And that gives me negative y is greater than negative 3x plus 4. Okay, I just put the negative 3x in front so that it would be in the mx plus b form, but it's really all the same thing. Now the last thing I have to do is I have to get y by itself, and that negative is messing things up. It's being multiplied times negative 1, so I'm going to divide everything by negative 1. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So then that leaves me with y is less than, okay? Notice the sign changed. The sign changed because I divided both sides by a negative number. So negative 3x is 3x, and positive 4 becomes minus 4, or negative 4, same thing. Okay? So now I'm done with step 1. I solved for y. For step 2, what I need to do is use the slope-intercept form to actually graph the line. So remember, your slope, or your m, is a number that was the coefficient of x, which is 3. But since our slope isn't a fraction, we want to write it as a fraction so we can see what our rise is and we can see what our run is. Then the next thing that we need to know is we need to know what our y-intercept is, which is negative 4. Please make sure that you include the sign, so it's negative 4. So the first thing that I want to put on the graph is my y-intercept. But before I do that, my graph isn't labeled, so I need to go ahead and do that. So y-axis, x-axis, 1, 2, 3, 4. This way, I know that every unit is worth 1. And I'm spacing them out a little bit so it's not cluttered, that's all. But if you want to go one by one, that's fine too. So I'll go ahead and plot the y-intercept, which is negative 4. And then I'll use the slope. So the rise is positive, which means I'm going up, and it's positive 3. So I'm going to go up 3. 1, 2, 3. Then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my run, which is also positive. It tells me whether I'm going left or right. So since it's positive, I'm going to go to the right 1, since it was 1. So where I ended up was at the coordinate 1, negative 1. So I graph my line, and of course I always need arrows to show. Well, I'll make that line a little bit longer this time. There we go. That's a little better. So now I'm done with step 2. Step 3 is very easy. All you have to do is now determine whether your line needs to be dotted or solid, okay? So dotted lines are represented by greater than and less than, and the solids are represented by less than or equal to and greater than or equal to. Okay, so if it doesn't have the line under it, that means that it needs to be dotted. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to erase parts of my line to make it look a little dotted. So I'm just erasing part of it. Okay, so now I have more of a dotted line instead of straight. So now I'm done with step 3. And again, it's dotted because I don't have the line under my inequality. You need to pay attention to your inequality to tell whether it's going to be dotted or not. Alright, and the last step is pretty easy. All I have to do is shade in based on the inequality symbol, okay? So since y is less than, that means I need to shade under, okay? Y is less than, so I have to shade under, okay? So under will be here, okay? It's not so much left and right. It's about being under, okay? So that's how I would shade that one in. And now I'm done.